The Ken evolution has been running victory laps all across the internet ever since Ryan Gosling's Ken stole the Barbie movie right from underneath the perfectly pedicured feet of the titular main character, to the point that all everyone talks about now is Ken. No one even mentions Barbie. She's not even a topic of conversation. Everything else in the Barbie movie is a distant tertiary concern to Ken. It is the Ken movie, that's what it is, and it was followed by a bit of a battle online, with both left and right attempting to claim the Ken movie for their own, and it's been an extraordinarily one-sided fight, frankly, because the feminist argument is, oh, Barbie's a feminist movie, and then the Kenists go, hold on, the feminist utopia is one in which men are consistently abused and relegated to the status of not even citizens but mere objects with zero rights whatsoever? Are you sure this is the equality you want? Because we might have issues with it. And even the feminists look at that and go, yeah, that's pretty actually terrible. To the point where now they've pretty much given up on the claiming part and they've moved into the attacking element. Barbie's Ken is my abuser, writes Colette Foy for the Huffington Post, and boy is this article a doozy and a half. Let me give you a little bit of a teaser here. If she wants every night to be girls' night, and that's what she should have. She doesn't owe Ken anything, it's not her fault that he doesn't have anything else to do other than stalk her because he's obsessed. I don't know what movie this woman watched, but it sure as hell wasn't the Ken movie. This woman has watched the movie and she is so thoroughly indoctrinated in her own victimhood status, not because of anything that necessarily happens in the movie, but because of how she sees herself, that she now identifies with being woman, with being automatically the victim and the underclass in any scenario, regardless of what's going on here. Then if she wants every girls' nights to be girls' night, Barbie, then that's what she should have. She doesn't owe Ken anything. Ken is literally her property, de facto. Ken doesn't have a house. If it isn't Ken night, if it's girls' night yet again, Ken sleeps on the street. And yes, no, Barbie does owe Ken something, because she's the one who reduced him to the, status of object. Not to mention the mental abuse that she levies against him. Barbie will hang out around Ken and use him for her own amusement, to use him as eye toy, or use him as a background dancer in her choreographed dance routines. But the moment Ken is like, okay, so could we hang out now? She goes, no, you can leave now because it's girls' night. Holy hell. Would you not consider that to be a mildly toxic relationship? I sure as hell would. As would the majority, I think. But, okay. So, the woman frames this in the frame of her own workplace relationship. She uses the first few paragraphs to basically explain that her boss at work thought that they were far closer than they actually were, and at one point opened up about his sex life to her, an act that made her feel like fleeing. Okay, fair enough, that's hardly an appropriate workplace conversation, I do suppose, but that's also the worst thing she accuses him of. It sounds like a boundary issue more so than anything, where she, the recipient being flirted with, should probably go, I'm not really interested, sorry, rather than let this go on. But, okay, there is also the argument here that he's the boss. She can't just go like, yeah, I know, you kind of creep me out here, sir. Fair enough. But this is then transported into the Barbie world, crazily enough. Her husband said, after I saw the film, he confessed being bewildered, bothered even by the Barbie Land ending. Specifically when Barbie apologized to Ken for taking him for granted, saying not every night has to be girls' night. Even the husband has been so indoctrinated to the point where he's not even able to sympathize with the actually oppressed victim of the movie. Holy shit, this is some actual brainwashing right here. Barbie doesn't like or want to be with Ken, and that should be okay. But she still winds up apologizing because she knows that Ken's frustration means he's going to do real damage to others or himself, e.g. take over Barbie Land or jump off the dream house, if she doesn't pacify him in some way, in words, if not the way he wants physically. See, here's the thing. What you fail to understand is that Ken is the legitimate victim here. Ken is just as sentient as Barbie. He is a real-life thinking individual. And okay, that Barbie doesn't like or want to be with Ken is fair enough. And in fact, the movie ends with her saying that to Ken, like, I don't like you that way. But that is okay. But she should apologize to Ken because she has literally been oppressing Ken. Unironically, straight up. Oh my god. And again, this is all because it's framed in her own point of view, taking zero consideration of what's on screen. It's remarkable. She sees a thing right in front of her, and her mind just blanks on it. It just disappears completely because of how thoroughly indoctrinated she is. And it gets even more complicated, because Barbie recognizes Ken's awfulness, yet she still hopes he likes her. A desperate desire for women everywhere, articulate in the film as so tiring only moments before. American Ferrera's Gloria, Barbie's real-world mentor, assures her that he does, and he's just mad that she doesn't like him or want him in the same way. Even though Barbie doesn't like Ken, she still doesn't want to hurt him. Gloria has to remind her that he stole her house and took over the government. Notably, Barbie ends this conversation with, "I'm like a real woman already," acknowledging this need to be liked and the fear of causing harm as a particular female experience because it is. Bullshit. Ken's entire experience is being desperate to get Barbie to like him. That is his entire character. That's why he introduces patriarchy, to have a monogamous relationship with Barbie. This woman's insane. An actual genuine lunatic. And Barbie recognizes Ken's awfulness. In this woman's view, the slaves rising against the master are at fault because they didn't respect the master's boundaries. Oh my god. And again, even this she gets wrong. Not at any one point does Barbie ever go like, oh, I hope Ken likes me. The closest she gets is looking out at Barbie land under patriarchy and going, well, I mean, we did terribly abuse the Kens, and people seem happier now than ever. Maybe I should just let it go. At which point the feminist goes, no, woman, you have the power. You can have an absolute matriarch and continue to oppress the men. Okay. That's quite the take. I had this conversation, nearly verbatim, with my therapist in the aftermath of my workplace abuse. But he said I would hurt him, and I don't want to hurt him. In other words, what if he jumps off the dream house? My therapist was Gloria, reminding me he was your boss. He continued to harass you after you said no, and he said no one will believe you because of the short dresses you wear, like something out of a Mad Men episode. That kinda does sound like it. But, okay. Fair enough. Again, your boss is in a position of power over you, trying to get more out of you than you are willing to give. Who does this remind you of? Somebody desperately wanting someone who has more authority of them's approval and, likeness, to be liked by that person. Oh, I wonder, where have I seen this before? Where have I seen this before? Woman, you are Ken! You are not Barbie. Barbie is the boss. Help me. You are Ken. You are the person who is in a one-way relationship, who is being abused by someone with absolute authority over you. You are the one who is trying to be liked by that person, regardless of the damage it is doing to you psychologically. You are Ken, Colette. Embrace the Ken evolution. As a woman, you have to force yourself to detach and look at the situation like you're watching a film to recognize the villainy, because we're so conditioned to believe in our failings and feel subsequent guilt. At one point, Ken screams at Barbie that she failed him, and she really seems to believe him. She does so much work afterwards to make amends for something that she shouldn't have to make amends for in the first place. She doesn't. Oh, again, you are Ken. Ken finally got a different point of view. He viewed himself like he was in a film because he saw the real world, and then he looked back at Barbie Land going, holy shit, my home is oppressive. There is an alternative. You are Ken. God help me, but you are Ken. And again, Barbie does not make amends. In fact, Barbie, what she does do is mentally manipulate Ken by going, all right, I guess we can finally be in a relationship, Ken. And she does this only so she can rig the vote against the Kens and turn Ken against his fellow Kens. My God. If she wants everyone to be girls' night, then that's what she should have. She doesn't owe Ken anything, except reparations for years and years of slavery, I do suppose. Those most critical of Barbie are right-wing men who accuse the film of being too woke. Right-wing men. Now, there's been a couple, to be fair, as the initial knee-jerk reaction was indeed this woke movie, and I can see their point, because it's not a conservative movie. I've seen people go like, oh, the Barbie movie is conservative. God, no, it's not. The initial scene has babies' heads smashed open on rocks. It is not a conservative movie. It is absolutely a woke feminist movie, but it is made by a person who has such a weak grasp on political thought that she managed to accidentally create a hero in what she intended to be the villain. Whereas I'm arguing we're not woke enough if we're not cringing during Barbie's etology to a caretaking of Ken. And mind blown. There you have it, haven't you? There's the admission. This woman is of the opinion that after having oppressed the Ken, reduced him to the status of object with zero rights, no property rights, no independence, no ability to live in houses, no nothing, and then the Ken goes like, I want more, I want to have something, and the Barbies take that away from them again. The Barbies shouldn't apologize. In fact, we should cringe at that and go, no, 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 silly man, you belong at the bottom of the barrel. Woman, you are an unironic female supremacist. You have the unironic worldview that women should be above men in every regard. You are, unironically, I will use that word a lot, of the belief that men are not even second-class citizens. Because that's what you're saying right here. At first, I did not report my boss for sexual harassment because he voluntarily resigned from his position after my no became increasingly desperate. So you told him no enough and threatened him, presumably, about making, reports, and he then voluntarily resigned. Okay? Problem solved, I guess. And I chose to believe him when he said I was the only one with whom he crossed the line and that he would go to therapy. But when I began to talk to other women about what happened, I discovered that someone else, younger and in an even more vulnerable position, had made previous allegations that were dismissed, after which she left the workplace. This changed everything because it's easier for me, maybe for all women, to advocate for others rather than myself. I worked with a lawyer to submit a letter to put my workplace on notice. I requested a Title X investigation. I forget off the top of my head that what is. It's 9, isn't it? Investigation. It has been months of silence. No real-world version of Rhea Perlman, Ruth Handler, a divine feminine creator in Barbie, named after the actual Mattel executive who made the iconic doll, has emerged to offer tea, to point me in the direction of stairs leading to a way out, or to provide English illumination via magical hand grasp about such an opaque process. Let that sink in for a second. This woman's... Okay, so she said no, eventually, made it clear, and then the man went like, okay, I'll resign. That sounds like a bit more of a no than me. Maybe I'm assuming things here, I don't know the specifics of the situation. He then promised he would go to therapy as well, so he's now also mentally ill on top of that. And when you had resolved the situation and fired the guy, de facto, you then go, oh wait, I will now sue the company for what he's done. And your primary complaint about this is that you weren't magically given satisfaction instantly, that your complaints actually needed to be investigated, and that it has taken entire months for this process to begin. You are again an actual literal female supremacist who believe that the world should revolve around you at the expense of everybody else. And hey, to be fair, this could be a really bad example. She could have had a really bad boss, a genuine asshole, straight up hardcore abusive, and she is well within her rights. Entirely possible, but in that case, you are doing the correct thing. The legal system is currently working on your behalf to carry out your wishes. This is how the system works. We cannot simply automatically assume that because you, a woman, pointed a finger at somebody else, that they're guilty, because that's what's happening in Barbie land. Ken's the real villain of the film, my husband concluded. After just a little bit of prodding, I would assume. Yes, in the feminist utopia that audience are looking for appears at the beginning of the movie. My God, she actually says it. When Barbie feels no compunction at telling Ken she'd like him to leave, and when he just does. Holy hell. The mask isn't slipping, it's on a different continent at this point. In the end, I'm glad that Barbie exists. The film has helped me both to understand and to communicate my most traumatic and confusing experience to my husband, a man who is even more of a feminist advocate than, and as rare as, Michael Kara's Alan. I wish there were multiples of Alans who actively helped overthrow Kendom in Barbieland because he recognized its toxicity, and I wish that Barbie's apology to Ken felt uncomfortable to them in the film and to real-life audiences as it did to my husband. My God, this poor sod. Unironically, this poor sod. Oh well, at least his tactic of finding a woman by being an ally succeeded, so there's something right there. Here's the truth. I would not have been able to heal from my experience as quickly as I did without my husband's solid, gentle support. When I told him about the abuse, he listened. He also urged me to go to a therapist, someone who you can tell everything to. He said knowing that my affection for fear and fear of hurting him would cause me to hold back. I felt vulnerable in a scary situation, and he never once made it about him or his ego, and he read books like The Body Keeps the Score to help himself and me understand why I was exhibiting physical symptoms of narcissistic abuse syndrome. I was exhibiting narcissistic abuse syndrome. Okay. So, what you are saying is, you have found a pre-Kenvolution Ken. You have found a person who is happy to be just there for you. You have found yourself a wife. in the most literal sense of the word. A man who is willing to put aside everything that he is in order for you to be better than him. Oh, congratulations, I do suppose. Is this work a year of listening and perspective talking that caused discomfort he experienced while watching Barbie? And this discomfort is the transformative power capable of making the best Allens out of the worst Kens? Note to Greta Gerwig, that's a sequel I'd most like to see. I think you're quite alone about that, as everyone else seems to be screeching about a Ken sequel. Here's the thing. The woman, again and again over the course of this entire article, blatantly states that the only thing she wants is to rule over men. She at no point makes any mentions of the abuses of the Barbies because she's probably for them. She probably viewed them as the way the world should work. She is of the opinion that enforcing absolute domination over men is not only the right thing to do, it is the only thing to do. And she has found herself a real-life partner who is of the same opinion. So, I don't know why, but I get this sneaking thought in my head. This is what the honorary Jews must have thought in a certain country in Europe, circa 1930s and 40s. My God. This article is actually psychotic. Straight up, genuinely psychotic. It lacks even the slightest shred, the tiniest hint of basic compassion for the undisputed victims of the movie. The actually homeless, sleeping on the beach Kens with no societal influence, no recourse, no ability to do anything for themselves. This is what an actual psychopath looks like. A complete and utter inability to place themselves in somebody else's shoes. And they must view the entire world solely through their own lens, and no other point of view can even be entertained, much less taken seriously. Jesus. Well, I suppose it's good that this is coming out. I mean, I've been saying this for a while now. A lot of us have been pointing this out for quite some time, but it took the Barbie movie to bring this to the public's attention. Oh, wow. Well, if you'd told me 10 years ago that a Barbie movie would deliver one of the most persuasive arguments against feminism by allowing the feminists themselves to show themselves as the monsters they wish to be, I would probably have laughed rather loudly in your face, and I guess I now owe you an apology, much like Barbie owes Ken one. The Huffington Post. Feminism. At its most honest. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.